Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the working conditions and the work environment. And you've given me a little bit of background about how you came to work at K25, and obviously there were background checks that were conducted on you prior to you coming down here. Were you aware of any of these background checks being conducted on you, or?
Oh, I was very much aware of background checks because I would hear from family and relatives that officials would contact them and to investigate me and also my wife. So yes, we were very much aware that we were being investigated for security clearance.
Okay. And my understanding is that Oak Ridge and K25, they were secret facilities. It was sort of like a gated place. Were you able to come and go in and out of Oak Ridge and K25 as you pleased, or what was the security environment like?
Well, there was a fence, of course, around the whole town, and there were guards at various posts leaving the town, and you could not come and go freely. We were all badged. Even as we moved around the town, we wore badges. And in order to go to Knoxville, for example, we had to receive clearance to go and to return. And our family could not come to visit without us making special preparations. We had to make an application, and we had to meet family at the guard stations, be examined, and then take them on into our living quarters. There were a lot of jokes about that, of course, that mother-in-law couldn't come and visit unless she was initially approved. And another thing, there was a great deal of resentment, well, first of all, curiosity in the surrounding communities about what is going on in Oak Ridge. And initially, we were not very welcome. I know that we would sometimes go to Knoxville to shop, and we would remove our badge so that people in Knoxville could not see the badge, because sometimes they wouldn't wait on us. Of course, then it didn't take long till when they heard us speak, that they knew that we weren't Knoxvillians, and so the resentment was frequently shown. And of course, that's understandable.
What type of perceptions did they have about what was going on out there at K25? And
well,
Oak Ridge, what were their perceptions of what's going on? I mean, I'm sure that people from the locals from around here saw vehicles coming in and out and supplies coming in and out, and anything that you heard what they thought was going on?
Well, I'm sure there was a great deal of curiosity, because there was so much activity here. Inside of a year and a half to 70,000 people here, where there had been essentially no people other than a few remote farms. And there was so much activity. Naturally, there was a great deal of curiosity. And there was some of the old North-South resentment. I know that initially I was called a damn Yankee a few times. But with time, that resentment wore off, and I didn't experience anything that was troublesome, other than noting resentment.
Okay. When you were traveling in Knoxville, or you talked to somebody in Knoxville, for example, and they asked you what you did up there, what did you tell them?
Generally, my response was, "I'm very sorry, but the work is classified, and I may not discuss it."
Okay.
That was usually my response.
And it must have been an interesting environment in general, working around classified information. I guess when you were on site at K-25, how did people communicate? Were they able to communicate pretty freely among each other while you were on the job?
No, the communication was very much departmentalized. You communicated with the people that you worked with, and with them you knew what could be discussed. For example, I had little communication with the people at the Y-12 plant. Their work was different, and while I knew many of them in the town, we did not discuss our work. So it was quite departmentalized. You knew who you could communicate with, and there was concern all the time about what is classified and how you treat things that are classified. And I think the tendency might have been to feel quite restricted by classification and concern about whether or not you could say certain things. And so the tendency was to say nothing.
How did that work with your home life? Was there any tensions or anything that got created out of that?
Not tensions at all, but my wife did not know what I was doing, and I was not free to tell her, and she understood that, and that caused no problem. But one of my greatest regrets was that my children did not know what I was doing. And so far as they were concerned, Daddy went to work in the morning and he came home at night, and that was it. And in the very early days of my first child, lots of times I didn't come home at night. I stayed at the plant for 24 to 32 hours. And so I have regretted that they were not able to know what was going on and what their father did. I felt that I would like to take them and show them what I was doing, because I was proud of what I was doing.
I can understand that. How do they reflect on, or how do they feel now about the work that you did? Or have you had an opportunity to talk to them about what you contributed down here?
Not in any detail, but I of course have been able to tell them somewhat of what I did and some of the things I did. In fact, just last Saturday, I took one of my daughters and her husband out to the overlook at K-25 just to show them what you could of the facility, and I described some of the work that I did in the startup of the gaseous diffusion plant and later in the manufacture of barrier. and now she's in her 50s.
So was she pretty impressed by that? Has she ever seen the building before then, or? 'Cause I was impressed
Not as close as we were able to see it this time, and it was the first time for her husband.
It was an impressive building. I was
Yes.
awestruck the first time I came out here inside, because back in October, the first time we came out here, I had no idea what gaseous diffusion or K25 or any of this was, and it's been an amazing experience. What were your coworkers like? Did everybody? I think you said that they did. Did everybody pull their weight? Everybody cooperated pretty well together and worked well together?
Well, in the sense that there was little conflict, yes, but like any group of people, some pulled more than their weight, and others didn't, and it was interesting to see that those that were not willing to put in the long hours that were required at the time were the first ones to disappear. So
interesting.
But there were many, many wonderful friendships made. The people, of course, came from all over, and we had to find our friends among the new people that came to work, and those friendships have lasted long, and many of us have stayed on here in Oak Ridge. We love Oak Ridge, and I've now been here for about 60 years, and I intend to stay here. I like Oak Ridge. I think it's a marvelous community and has many, many benefits and many wonderful memories.
Okay. Initially, I guess what kind of health facilities were available to you at K25?
What kind of
health facilities? Do they have hospitals or?
Oh, well, at K25 itself, there was what we call a dispensary, and we had frequent health checks for all kinds of things, hearing and all various blood tests and so on that were run at least annually, and they had doctors on there day and night, and that was excellent. And then the health care in the community was top notch. They brought in very fine doctors from Johns Hopkins and various places. So the health care, both in the workplace and in town, was very, very good. Initially, the doctors that we had were not necessarily assigned to us. You took the doctor that was available on call when you needed medical care. But they were extremely competent doctors, and many of them were still in uniform while practicing medicine here.
Okay. We can kind of shift here. We'll talk a bit. I have a few questions specific to the Manhattan Project, and during the Manhattan Project era, when we were initially down here and K25 was beginning its operation. I mean, what was your understanding of the function of the K25 facility during that time? Did you pretty much know what it was? I guess what it was that you were doing and what it was going to be used for?
I got my initial understanding, and it wasn't necessarily real clear right at the moment, but while I was still working at the Manhattan Project on Columbia University, I began to have my first insight as to what was going on. I knew at the time that the Manhattan Project goal was to produce a nuclear weapon. That was sort of passed around among the technical people, sort of behind the hand type of whisper. And because of the technical training that I had in physics, I could understand in a very rudimentary manner that there were a tremendous amount of energy available in, that could be released from uranium-235. So far as what such a device would look like and so forth, of course, I had no idea.
Okay. Let's see, what was your reaction to August 6, 1945, the day the bomb was dropped? What was it like?
It was a sense of great relief. I was awaiting with great anxiety when this was going to happen, because I was well aware when the first uranium hexafluoride that was partially enriched was withdrawn from the gaseous diffusion cascade. And of course, it was then taken to the Y-12 facility for further enrichment. And the time, and I can't remember exactly when the timing, but it seemed like it was in May or June or something like that when materials were withdrawn from the cascade. And till August 6th, it seemed like an awful long time. Obviously, it was not very long, but the anxiety, we knew that there was going to be an atomic bomb, and what was to be done with it, of course, we didn't know until we heard of the August 6th event.
And what was the overall atmosphere like, just all over the facility when that happened?
Oh, well, here in Oak Ridge and in surrounding communities was one of great excitement and celebration, and it was the first time, of course, that the people outside of the community and most of the people in the community knew what was going on. Those that were, of course, that were in upper management, or those that had the technical know-how, they knew what was going on, but there were so many people, the families and so on in Oak Ridge had no idea. And there are, of course, many anecdotes now as to what was being said outside about what was going on here, and I guess you've heard many of those in your interviews.
I haven't heard a lot, and I would like to hear more. So if you could think of any, I'd be interested in hearing them.
Well, it's at the moment, it doesn't. I'm sorry, I can't bring one to mind right now either.
That's okay. If one pops into your head later, just let me know. How do you think that history should view the Manhattan Project and its outcome?
Well, I think history has to acclaim it as indeed the greatest technical and engineering feat that has ever been accomplished. when you consider how there was nothing here but farmland, and they put in the city infrastructure for water and sewage and homes, living facilities. Maybe I shouldn't call them all homes, but living facilities for 70,000 people, and to accomplish it in a year's time. I can't recall actual dates and times, but in my memory, the K-25 facility, that whole mile-long U, was accomplished, I believe, in less than a year. It just blows your mind even today to think about it. And all of the living quarters, I know that I witnessed the town being built where you would see bulldozers just bulldozing a road up the side of the ridge, and houses going up following the bulldozer. And in a few days or a week's time, you come and see houses where there had never been houses. Building many, and I don't remember, but it seems to me they might have been building as many as 20 to 30 houses a day. Feats of this kind are just remarkable, and had never been before or since anything like it.
That was a beautiful answer. Thank you. Let's talk about after the Manhattan Project now. And after the Manhattan Project, there was a transitional period, and then I guess at K-25 started up the expansion program. Can you explain the expansion program and when that began?
I don't recall exactly when it began, but my work was very much involved in the expansion program. The initial K-25, the barriers that were used there turned out to be somewhat inefficient, and they learned later how to make more efficient barrier. And that allowed for more effectively, or having a more effective process for the separation of the uranium isotopes. And in 1946, excuse me, I was sent to Buffalo, New York, to witness a new process for manufacture of barrier. Excuse me, I'm going to have to stop.
Yep, that's fine. Callan, the way that you're telling them is just really good. I'm really enjoying this interview. I think.
Okay.
So I thank you for continuing on. Where were we?
I was talking about
expansion program.
about the expansion program,
right,
and my participation in it. In 1946, I was sent to Buffalo, New York, to witness a new process for the manufacture of barrier. It had been developed by the Lindy Corporation. And it was a barrier that promised to make the gaseous diffusion process a great deal more efficient. And of course, gaining efficiency with a process such as the diffusion process that uses so much electrical energy resulted in a great deal of decrease in cost. And so you could afford to take a new type of barrier and put it into the plant the gaseous diffusion plant. And so that was the start of the expansion program. After observing and learning how that process was done, I hired 3 young engineers that were working in its development, and they came to Oak Ridge. And then about 1947, we started to build a facility for manufacture of a different type of barrier. And that facility was started in its operation, I believe, in 1948. And from 1948 on to many years on into the 60s anyway, barrier was being manufactured, and the K-25 building was completely redone with new barrier. Other plants were built, such as K-29, K-31, K-33. The Paducah, Kentucky plant, the Portsmouth, Ohio plant, and for all of those, the barrier was manufactured by this new barrier facility in Oak Ridge. Of course, during its operation, it was greatly improved also. The manufacturing processes were greatly improved, more effective than the ones brought from the Lindy facility in Buffalo. And I worked, I guess one of the most exciting and one of the things I'm most proud of in my own experience is that I had the opportunity to be very active and very much a part of the design, the construction, and ultimately the operation of the barrier facility. So it felt like it was mine. It was something that I had done and something I was very proud of. In 1958, it was operating, and it probably had in the neighborhood of 350 to 400 employees. In later years, it became even larger, but in 1958, I had transferred to the Y12 facility.
Okay. And
maybe switch tapes.
yeah, let's go and switch tapes.